so much for joining me. This is Anna from Craft Me a Card, and I am here crafting for the crafter, and that is you. Okay, so for today's card, I want to present to you this beautiful birthday card using a stamp by Blank Page Muse. And that's the background stamp that you see here of the roses. I am part of Blank Page Muse's design team, so let me show you how I made this cute card. First, I bring in a piece of cardstock. This is white cardstock, and I place it in my MISTI. These are rubber stamps, and they do come unmounted. I think for $3 you could add cling foam to it, but we don't need cling foam because we have repositionable tape. Yay! So I just add a little bit to the back of the stamp, and I just close the door of the MISTI, and that picks it up. And I add a little bit of anti-static powder because we are going to be heat embossing it. And bringing in some Versamark watermark stamp ink, I ink up the stamp and I close the MISTI on it to stamp it on the cardstock. I then bring in my gold embossing powder and I sprinkle it all over my card. Then with the heat tool, I go ahead and I heat set this embossing powder. Next, to give these wonderful roses a beautiful color, I decide to do the smushing technique, and I bring in my Oxide inks, well, 3 of them. Picked raspberry, worn lipstick, and squeezed lemonade. And just by placing a piece of plastic on my workstation here, I go ahead and I add a little bit of water to these colors and I smush my cardstock onto it. And with a little brush, I go ahead and I fill in whatever gaps the color did not get into. And I also decide to add a little bit more of a darkness to the center of some of these roses, just to add more color to it and variation. Once I am content with it, I dry it up with my heat tool, or you could leave it to air dry, and I go ahead and I cut this piece out. Since my card base is a little different from the size of an A2 size card, it's about 1/4 of an inch taller, I do have a little bit of a gap, but I want to share with you guys a little trick. I'm going to cut this piece in half to later fill the gap with ribbon. To prepare the piece for the ribbon and for it not to be all wonky, I go ahead and I cut a piece of cardstock to the size that I need for this top layer. And then I take some liquid glue and I add my 2 pieces onto this piece. The idea is a little clearer here of why we needed this piece. Now it's easier to add the ribbon onto this top layer. By adding some liquid glue and taping it a little bit to the back, I go ahead and I add 2 layers of ribbon. First, this gold, and I wanted to bring out some of that pink, so I decided to add another layer of some satin pink ribbon. And I decided to create a beautiful bow using the pink ribbon. And this is a contraption that I shared with you guys a while back. I'll put the link up here for you guys to click on and see how this works. But it creates beautiful bows for your cards, and you can create them at whatever size you would like. Never forget to burn the edges to stop the ribbon from fraying. The time has come to put this card together. Yay! Alright, so I add some liquid glue to my card base and I bring in my gold base first. And then I go ahead and also with liquid glue, I go ahead and I add the top layer to this card.
Oh oui, magnifique!
Adding some glue to the middle of the ribbon, I go ahead and I place the bow. I add some pressure to it by placing this piece of glass on top of it just to help it set a bit. For my sentiment, I decide to add a little tag with a happy birthday. And I went ahead and I stamped it. This is from the Julie Nutting planner stamps. They're really tiny. And by using a piece of leftover distressed cardstock, the same one that we used for the stamp, I go ahead and I stamp it with Stays On ink. Because these are Oxide inks that I'm going to be stamping on, try different inks to avoid from it stamping too opaque. I tried different ones and Stays On ink was the one that worked best for me. I bring in my tag punch. This was purchased from Oriental Trading Company years ago. And I go ahead and I place the sentiment and I punch it out. And to give the tag a nicer finish, I go ahead with Antique Linen Distress ink. I just go around the edges and I ink them up. Okay, so you could leave the card there. It is beautiful. Or you could step it up. So I decided to add the happiness that sequence brings. And just by adding some Duolit glue all over the card, different spots, I go ahead and I bring two different kinds of sequence. One is an iridescent one, and I decided to bring out some of that gold that the card has and add some rose gold colored sequence. So the card could be left as is. It is beautiful. It depends how far you want to take it. So I want to take it one step further and add some glossy accents, and that will help the sentiment
Shine like a diamond.
Okay, you could leave the card here as it is, or you guessed it, take it one step further. I'm going to add some corners to it, and you're going to see the change that the card gives. So I decide to cut out the 4 corners in gold and in that colored cardstock that we had left over. I save all the negative little pieces from the colored cardstock that I cut out, and this is because I'm going to be filling in the gold corners with this. You'll see what I mean. I take some washi tape and I take some of the stickiness away from it, and then I flip my gold cardstock over and I stick it on this piece of washi tape. I place a little bit of glue, just a little drop, and I dip the point of my paper piercer in this glue just to grab the negative pieces that were cut out from the leftover colored cardstock. Next, I add some liquid glue to where these pieces meet just to reinforce it. I remove it carefully from the washi tape and I set it aside to dry. Once I have my 4 corners all ready and dry, I go ahead and I take some foam adhesive and I add it to the back of these just to give it a more dimensional look. Even though these adhesive squares have adhesive, I like to add some liquid glue just for reinforcement as time goes by. And here it is. Ooh, ah. Adding the corners just brought the card to another level. I want to share with you the difference in size of the card base that I usually use, which is a 6.5 by 5 inch card, and the A2 size card. If you do have the larger size card, you can always place this smaller card on top of the larger card, and that'll give you the larger card you're looking for. Thank you so much for joining me. As always, I hope you get inspired. I hope you create and be happy. Please subscribe, like, and comment. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Oh no, the heat made this wobbly. Oh, the heat made this wobbly. Oh, hope it goes back. Let me cool it with water. Cool. Cool it now. You got to cool it now. Ooh, watch out. Okay, let go. Ah, pues.